The Assembly of the City and Borough of Sitka would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional First People of Sitka. With gratitude, we proceed on Clinton Ani. Sarah, roll call.
Mr. Mosher?
Here.
Ms. Duncan? Here. Mr. Yestad?
Here.
Mr. Christensen?
Here.
Mr. Pike?
Here.
And Ms. Carlson?
Here.
And Mayor Eisenbais is absent this evening.
Are there any correspondence or agenda changes? Okay, seeing none. Next item is a ceremonial. We have a service award for Robert Sam. And this is for his time on the Historic Preservation Commission. Bob, if you'd like to come up, please. Bob, I'd like to present to you the service award on behalf of the City and Borough of Sitka. And this is given to Robert Sam. This expression of grateful acknowledgement for your 8 years of valued service rendered in the public interest while serving on the Historic Preservation Commission. Here you go. Bob has served 8 years on the Historic Preservation Commission. He's also served Sitka in many, many ways. He is currently on the STA Tribal Council. He also is a caretaker of our graves, and he does it with great heart, and he's a man of service. And I think we're honored to have him in this community. I know we are. And you don't have to, but would you like to say a few words?
I think we'll have to be careful about my few words as a Tlingit speaker. I am very honored to receive this award from the City of Sitka. Thank you, City Assembly, citizens of Sitka, people, my friends, family. I served for 8 years on the Historic Preservation Commission out of love for this community and love for the ancestors that are buried here. As some of you may not know, 30 years ago, our cemeteries were neglected and forgotten places, full of brush, and it took all of 30 years to restore them, and the city helped out a lot in the beginning. Thousands of volunteers have helped, and today we've been able to rezone them as well to protect them as historic places through historic preservation. And I am appointed by Sitka Tribe of Alaska. We do have that government-to-government relationship, and historic preservation is part of this. As a certified local government, and it's wonderful what we can do together as partners, as a tribal government working together. I've enjoyed those government-to-government meals we've had. We've resolved many of our differences. We've even got to know each other a little bit better. Wonderful. And so I look forward to more partnerships, working together, and also what's very important to me is those archaeological heritage resource survey records. I just wanted to mention them because I worry about one thing. And I accept this with all my heart and soul, but I worry about one thing, and that is cultural appropriation. And allowing, I know how difficult it is to be involved with committees and commissions, I know. So, in a way, I would like to find more ways for my people to get involved with committees and commissions just as well as much as I would like you to be involved with our tribal government so that we can get to know each other better and be a better community, because this is Sitka. What a wonderful place. So thank you for this award. I'll go find a frame for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Next on the agenda is special reports. First, government to government. Sarah, you're going to call Bob, or I'm sorry, Woody.
Hello.
Hi, Woody. It's Sarah calling from the assembly meeting. We are ready for your report.
Thank you. This is from our tribal council meeting, March 15, 2023. We had, Mr. Mayor and assembly members, we had a couple phone polls that we ratified that evening. Council passed enrollment resolutions and relinquishment as well. Council approved third reading of the Baranof Island Housing Authority Ordinance. Approved an STA grant policy. Approved a letter to the Sitka National Historic Park regarding consultation on projects, upcoming projects. And Council approved a resolution encouraging state and federal actions to protect commercial troll access to Chinook salmon in Alaska waters. And nothing with the meeting though, but the GM, assistant GM and myself went to DC and gave our federal priorities with our two senators and representatives. So that's my report, Mr. Mayor and assembly members. Thank you.
Thank you, Woody. Okay, next under special reports, municipal boards, commissions, committees, municipal departments, school district. Is there anyone from the school district here? Students and guests. Okay, this is person to be heard. It's public participation on any item off the agenda. All public testimony is not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual. Thank you.
Hello, thank thank you, everybody, for your time in providing this platform. And I'm here, my name is Leah Mason, to report on the first electrification expo that was held in this building last weekend. We just wanted to make the community and the assembly aware of how well it went and how engaged the community was in this event. So roughly 150 people attended, came through the door. We have had 18 organizations and businesses providing information. And the extent of the expertise that was present in the room was very much appreciated by everybody who came along. We were very, very grateful for the support of the Sitka Sound Science Center, Alaska Heat Smart, the Alaska Center for Energy and Power. We also had local representatives from Sitka Construction, Brown's Refrigeration, Alaska Safe Tech, and a number of exciting kind of experimental displays. So the Sitka Sound Science Center, for instance, was ready to debut their saltwater-based heat pump project, and that got a lot of people's attention and really provided a great point of focus for what's coming in the future. And we would like to thank all of those people and the people who put their volunteer efforts into hosting the event. We were able to generate a lot of really great conversation even before the public attended. So we would like to recognize how important it is to get all those people into the same room because of the amazing networking opportunities it provides. We'd also like to say that while one of those experts was in town, he booked and undertook 12 energy audits, which is an opportunity we don't often get. And he's coming back in late April. We'll be putting up contact details so that people in the community are interested in accessing that. This is something that Sitka will need if we are going to take advantage of the many opportunities there are to retool and change the way we do things. Thank you very much for your time.
I've never done this before. My name is Mary Saminsky, and I am here to formally invite all of you to a presentation that I'm bringing to Sitka. It's entitled Parenting in the Digital Age, and I'm bringing Lieutenant Ryan Browning from the Homer Police Department, and he has developed and honed an incredible program about what it's like to parent youth in this day and age, because we've never had children that have had access to social media the way they do now. And as parents, we've never parented children that have been raised in this kind of environment. And so he has done a lot of the dirty work. He's really gone in and gotten deep into a lot of the different social platforms. And he has really developed a very engaging, very informative program to address all of these concerns and talk about why our kids are so depressed and why they are, in the state alone, 1 out of 4 girls has a plan to commit suicide at any given time in our state. And that should shock everybody. And this uptick has only gained momentum since our children have been online. And so he has, instead of burying our head in the sand thinking, oh my gosh, this is a huge problem, how could we ever possibly overcome this? He has given us a gateway to have a really good, frank conversation, not with just each other and with him, but then later when we go home with our children, and not just have it once, but have it over and over and over again as a new way to parent. Because our children are different children than we were, certainly they're different children than kids were 10 years ago. And it's changing rapidly, and we have to be more engaged as adults and as community members. And it's not just parents, it can be aunties, it can be neighbors, it can be the mailman, it doesn't matter because it's all our community. This is our youth, and we're at a dire time for our children. And so, having said all that, I want to see you all there on April 7th, 6 o'clock, Friday. You'll see these little flyers. I'm putting them up all over town. I'm going to be on KCAW on the Thursday morning interview. I'm going to be doing a problem corner. The newspaper is going to present an article on what Lieutenant Ryan's bringing. And I really want to see the Sitka Nakahiti packed, not because of Lieutenant Ryan coming from Homer, but because we're a community that loves our children, and we're going to show up in droves. So please come, tell everyone, share it everywhere you can. One more second, I know, but I would be remiss not to thank the group of people, because I started out by myself, but I quickly gained momentum.
To be fair, we have to cut you off right now.
Can I just a few people to thank? This has been a community effort. I'm going to thank the Elks Lodge, AC Lakeside, First Bank, the Aspen Hotel, Trish White, Mean Queen, Sitka Rotary, and a few anonymous donors. This is what makes it cut. So I'll see you all on April 7th, 6 o'clock, Sitka Nakahiti.
Thank you.
Thank you. And my kids, thank you.
Anyone else for questions of Vera?
Good evening, my name is Richard Green. We are indeed not the same children. When I was younger, McDonald's hamburgers cost 17 cents a piece. I recently went there and dinner for two was $30. So we are different, and thank you, Mary, and thank you, Leah, for one program which has happened and the other which will happen, which sound really great. What I have to ask you is to consider an arithmetic problem. Do you know how much one would have to spend in order for the general fund to get $50,000 in tax revenue at a rate of 6%? The calculation is a simple ratio. The arithmetic concept is probably taught in at least the 6th grade. At 6%, the answer is $833,333.33. And at 5%, which we do pay at part-time during the year, it's a cool million. So you have to spend $1 million to get $50,000. I bring this up because when the assembly spends $50,000, the money has to come from somewhere, and sales tax is one way it is obtained. I say obtained because it is not earned by the city. Another way to look at $50,000 is that it represents 83 mills in property tax, or a value of $8,300,000 in property value, or the property taxes paid by 23.7 homes valued at $350,000. I am sorry, Virginia, there is no Santa Claus here. The money has to come from somewhere, and that is where it has to be earned by citizens, and taxes have to be paid. At last Thursday's budget meeting, it was said, we are all sensitive to how rate increases affects the community. We are community members and we pay those same bills. We are doing the best we can under the circumstances. Well, I ask, are you? Are you doing the best, and can you possibly do better? There are so many economic factors compounding our lives at this moment in history, but there is one way the Assembly can help those who they pretend to care about to make life a little easier. Example, there was a recent add-on to the budget which did cost $50,000, and that meant it equals $1 million in food purchases at the supermarket. My request to the Assembly is to eliminate sales tax on food for Sitkans. That would represent a substantial saving in the world. Yes, we have come to that. The Assembly has considered this before under less dire circumstances, and how do we make up for the revenue loss? Well, we start cutting the budget, which I really didn't see much happening at all as I listened to all the meetings, and certainly add a head tax for tourists who utilize our utilities, infrastructure, water, electricity, et cetera, et cetera. $5 or $10 is not too much to give to see beautiful Sitka. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for persons of your? Seeing none, move on to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion, please?
I'm going to approve the consent agenda consisting of the minutes from the March 14th December meeting.
Second.
Sarah, I'm sorry. No public comment on this, right?
There is.
Okay. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none. Anyone have any comments about the Okay. Sarah?
Okay, on the motion to approve the minutes from March 14th, Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Ms. Duncan,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
and Mr. Pike.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 on item A.
Okay, there's nothing under board, commission, committee appointments or unfinished business, which brings us to new business. Can I have a motion, please, for item B?
I move to approve ordinance 2023-04 on first reading, authorizing a property tax exemption for the Sitka Historical Society in the leased premises at Area and Centennial Hall.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Before we go to public comment, I'd like to just state that at the February 28th meeting, staff was directed to prepare an ordinance to extend the property tax exemption for the Sitka Historical Society. So that's the context with which this is coming forth. Any public comment?
Good evening, this is Richard Wein. I think it's a wonderful thing that you're giving an exemption to the Sitka Historical Society. I think it is absolutely appropriate. One of the important things to note is if you look in the resolution, it grants it from January 1st, 2021 to April 30th, 4048. So I hope all of you will be present in 48 to renew this at that time. I think one important thing is that the tax exemption is the smaller part of the ask of the Historical Society and the other part of utilities. I don't recall seeing that come by, but I hope that that will also be present because that was 16,000. I think the tax exemption was about 4,000. So please carry on this good work and thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the assembly. Any deliberation? Okay, seeing none, Sarah?
Okay, on the motion to approve ordinance 2023-04 on first reading, Ms. Duncan,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
and Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0, and that's on first reading, item B.
Okay. So now we'll move into additional new business items. Item C, can I get a motion, please?
I'm going to approve the Sustainability Commission goals for 2023-2024.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. So before we go to public comment, we're going to have Chair Katie Riley give a 10-minute presentation.
Don't count my IT time.
For those in the public listening, we're just taking care of the logistical side of this while Katie gets ready.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Katie Riley. I serve as the chair of the Sitka Sustainability Commission, which was created in October 2022. I'm very excited to share our draft work plan with you tonight and the goals that we selected to work on this year and hear any comments, feedback, questions you might have. And since there's a couple new faces on this body since the commission was created, I just wanted to start by saying welcome and thank you for serving on our assembly. And I wanted to give a little bit of context about how the commission was created, the history of some of the municipal sustainability and climate action that's happened in this town, and how we are convening this current body and the work that we're pursuing this year. So with that, I will start. So all of the beautiful graphics I will attribute to our wonderful sustainability coordinator, Bree. She does an excellent job, and I mainly just copied and pasted, but a little bit of context on Sitka's municipal climate action. So back in 2007, we had the mayor sign on to the U.S. Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement, and this was kind of the start of some significant climate action from the city of Sitka. In 2008, the city convened its first Climate Action Task Force, which finished the first Climate Action Plan in 2010. This plan was ultimately not adopted by the Assembly, although various city staff took up projects as their time and interest allowed, and we gathered a fair amount of information during the second Climate Action Task Force that took place in 2019 to assess where those recommendations went, and so that information exists and can be distributed. A greenhouse gas emissions assessment was conducted with baselines from 2003 to 2006, and that's the current baseline that we work off of for the community, although we do have an updated municipal greenhouse gas emissions inventory that was completed in 2020, I believe. So fast forward to 2019, when the Assembly, there's a bit of a lull after this. The plan was not adopted by the Assembly back in 2010, but in 2019, the Assembly passed a resolution declaring a climate emergency and establishing a climate action task force after youth from all 3 high schools advocated for the city to start taking action and treating this emergency with the attention that it deserved. So I served on the first climate action, or the second climate action task force, along with current Sustainability Commission members Ken Barkow and Elizabeth Bagley, who are both serving on the current Sustainability Commission. And one of our main recommendations was that we said, a permanent commission is really needed to deal with the issues of this magnitude. This is an ongoing issue that we're going to need to face as a community, and certainly can't be solved by a task force with a pretty limited scope. So we recommended a permanent commission be established, and also supported the hiring of a sustainability coordinator to help staff these efforts. So now, 2022, the Climate Action Task Force was retired. We have the creation of a permanent sustainability commission, and a great staff member in terms of Bree, who assists our commission. We have 7 members, and our goal is to position Sitka as a leader in the municipal sustainability area and work at a municipal level to solve challenges and answer questions that are going to help facilitate that community-wide sustainability action and uptake of initiatives. So in terms of the city's purview, this can mean a lot of different things, and I hope to lend a more realistic view about what that means tonight and kind of move away from the buzzwords. But some of the things that we're looking at is how to pursue infrastructure and capital improvement projects with an eye towards future needs and demands, how we're working with our municipal utility to be able to determine and meet the growing demand for electricity from residents and businesses as we transition to a clean energy future, and also how we're finding ways to help the city save money, wisely steward our resources, whether they be natural resources, financial resources, or energy resources, and make Sitka a more self-sufficient community. So with that, this is the scope of our commission. As you probably know, there are a lot of organizations and citizens in Sitka that care about and are working on climate and sustainability issues, and we're really fortunate to have this base of citizen support. So I want to articulate what really our scope is as a municipal commission. We're governed by the ordinance that created us back in 2022. And the commission is also supported by policy statements like the city's resolution to decarbonize municipal operations by 2030, which also includes a resolution to support the broader community in similar pursuits. the ordinance that establishes our intent to work towards catalyzing a healthy community now and in the future by proposing solutions to environmental, social, and economic concerns of the city and borough of Sitka, its partners, and community members. And these are some of the actions that it thought of those areas of catalyzing a healthy community exists within. So we've got, fossil fuel energy use reduction, responsible use of natural resources, sustainable transportation, really a really wide variety, as has been noted. And that is under the scope of this commission, but we're hoping that we've honed it down to a couple tangible goals that we can work on this year. So we do two things primarily, which is one, act as an advisory body to the assembly on what kinds of approaches and actions that you can take to address these topics. And also we work with city staff to do public outreach and understand community priorities for sustainability. And we are super lucky to have Bree and Amy at the planning department helping us carry this work forward, as well as Scott and Cord at the electrical department. I want to give a shout out to them. So our work differentiates from community-based organizations and citizens groups that are focused on climate and sustainability because we were created to advise the assembly, right, and act as a conduit for community priorities and connect them specifically to pathways for municipal action to be taken where appropriate. So we follow public processes like Open Meetings Act, Robert's Rules of Order, all the same things as y'all, and this can make things take a long time, right, and can be a little frustrating. You have to go through more hoops. But we're committed to this approach because we all believe that investing and supporting the city of Sitka to be a leader in the sustainability space in Alaska and across the nation is a really useful approach to do. So what does sustainability look like in action? A couple examples I mentioned earlier, infrastructure, capital improvement projects, but also working to ensure that we're planning ahead to conserve and efficiently utilize our hydropower as several large new developments are planned in town. And we'll touch on that later in our first goal. Looking at figuring out what kind of opportunities and challenges exist behind growing food locally at either personal, community, or business levels. With a lot of money leaving our community as the city pays contractors to deal with trash and waste, how can we create some feedback loops that keep that money in our local economy, reduce the amount of waste we're shipping out, and also find good uses for that waste that we do have. And then really a big one now with the situation that we're in at the federal level is how can we ensure that the city is able to take advantage of some of that federal funding opportunities to support what our municipal goals, what our sustainability goals, and really make our community more able to adapt and mitigate to the impacts of climate change. So this is a great resource or equation that I'm going to attribute to Bree. I think she might have gotten some help from other sources, so I'll let her explain that. But this is really demonstrative of how we work. And so we are really considering, what are the municipal goals? Our priorities, approach, and decision-making are guided by that, what y'all's priorities are, assessing the time and capacity needed to pursue those goals, what kind of resources are available to support these goals, and balancing all of these inputs as we seek to make sustainable change. So in terms of municipal goals, I just want to say that there's quite a bit of overlap between our focus this year and the city's strategic plan, especially goals 3 and 4. Number 3 is align resources and financial and economic policies for a sustainable community. And number 4 is plan and invest in sustainable infrastructure for future generations. So I see pretty significant overlap with both of those as we will show in our goals tonight. And we want to be able to support the rest of the community in implementing these new approaches, as well as creating opportunities for new industries and workforce development to help us address these challenges in our community. We also want to see sustainability and climate action integrated into city planning so that we are planning for the future prosperity of this town in the current projects and approaches that are being undertaken, right? These are significant infrastructure projects that are going to be around for a long time, but the world that we're going to live in 2020 and 2030 is going to be different. So how are we preparing for that future now? And the design phase is something that I think we're quite focused on. And especially, this is going to help save future generations from bearing those higher costs of adapting said infrastructure or making other changes. So that's a little bit about who we are and how we're approaching our job. And now I will get to the work plan draft you'll have in your packet. So I will try not to be too exhaustive, but wanted to lead you a little bit through the priority setting process, this kind of
Can
demonstrates.
I interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah.
Let's just, we have a timer going, let's just turn it off. I want to give her about 5 more minutes or so.
Thank you. So over the past 5 months, this is the timeline of what we've been working through. We've gotten information from each other, from the community. We've brainstormed some goals. We've gotten feedback from a couple different sources. Both a public survey was conducted. Our own commissioners gave feedback on all of the goals, and then we also got feedback from city staff, and I believe all of that is available in the work plan document. And so this just shows some of the feedback. And this leads us to our goals. Number 1 is we want to create a community renewable energy strategy. And this is going to establish a shared vision of Sitka's energy future and kind of roadmap, what are the policy actions, what do we need to do as a community to guide our investments over the next generations. The city made a huge investment in Sitka's renewable future by expanding the Blue Lake Dam. And this was a really good investment. I know it was a hard investment at the time, and it was really disheartening to see the federal and state government fail to support Sitka as the Assembly pursued this investment in our future. And so, the Assembly had a tough choice to make. They made it, and now we're in the opposite situation than we were after the dam was increased and our electrical demand decreased, where by 2030 we're expected to be at 95% operating capacity for that dam, and that's with the new developments that are happening over at Surge. So. This is without any energy efficiency measures built in or factored in, but as our society transitions towards electrification, we're going to need more generation capacity, but we also need to use the generation capacity that we have more wisely so that we don't have to spend more money to build things. How are we being conservative and efficient with what we do have? And so that's really what this community renewable energy strategy will get at. And we hope to apply for another round of Energy Transition Initiative Partnership Project Technical Assistance, ETIP, you might have heard of it. That request will be coming before the Assembly at one of your meetings in April, so I just wanted to flag that for you. And we hope that the National Renewable Energy Laboratories and other partners there will help us with the development of this strategy. The application for that is due on May 19th, so you can expect to hear more about that shortly. The second goal is that we're going to analyze opportunities for the diversion of municipal solid waste. This was something that was a priority of the previous Assembly that the Climate Action Task Force presented in front of. We got a waste management contract to be renewed in 2032. What can we do between now and then to plan for reduction of waste, keeping money circulating in the economy, finding new ways to utilize our waste, whether it be by diverting food waste and composting and growing more food with it, or exploring energy generation possibilities such as those through metabolic digesters. So again, we're looking for those solutions that really helps Sitka save money, helps the city save money, uses our resources more wisely and efficiently, and increases local opportunities for workforce development and new businesses. The third goal that we have is to create a municipal fleet transition plan and build out a larger electric vehicle infrastructure strategy. And so this is related to the decarbonization resolution that the city passed, I believe, last year. That commitment to decarbonize included city operations such as transportation. So we need a plan on how to integrate electric and hybrid vehicles into municipal purchasing and procurement schedules and policies. This is the nerdy stuff that I love to get into, so I won't say too much on it tonight, but there's a ton of municipalities, both in Alaska and throughout the nation, that have already engaged in this, and so we've got a lot of information to build on, and this plan is going to answer those necessary questions about cost-benefit analysis, what kind of maintenance requirements and training for mechanics looks like, and also what kind of infrastructure adjustments are needed to be able to charge these vehicles at public buildings. And we really hope to use that municipal plan to then inform a broader strategy for our community about how to install public electric vehicle charging infrastructure and become eligible for some of that federal support that exists. And we expect for that to open up around 2024, 2025. So pursuing this over the next year will put us in a good place for that. So these are our goals. Thank you. We meet monthly, each Tuesday at 6 p.m. We're going to work on these projects sequentially to move forward. So we've got a good body of work here. I don't think that we're going to be bored or not busy at any point, but those are going to move in terms of goal 1, goal 2, goal 3. for priorities. I just want to give a special thank you to Bree. She has been really wonderful carrying this work out on the city level, coordinating, and we're very lucky to have her with us, as well as Amy Ainsley, and then the electrical department, Scott and Ford as well, have been a great source of support. My vision is that this commission is able to work on these projects while also providing support and input to other projects, the commission, staff, and the assembly as requested. So please do lean on us as a resource, and we look forward to providing you with any information you might have, and questions you might have. That's all I have for you today.
Thank you, Katie, again, the chair of the Sustainability Commission. Thank you for your report. I did want to give you a little more time because you did a lot of information in a quick period of time. Thank you, it's a lot of work. I think what I'd like to do, because this is probably going to be a little bit longer, take an early break, then we'll come back, do persons to be heard, then do deliberations, and then if we have questions, we'll call you out.
Thank you.
So we'll take a 5-minute break.
Nice presentation. What's happening?
They're taking a break.
I'm into breaks.
Yeah.
Let your opinion be known about this, and please keep it to 3 minutes. Thank you. Ms. Mason?
Just go ahead.
I enjoyed hearing your commentary.
It's like debate, isn't it? Thank you again. My name is Leah Mason, and I would like to support the priority projects chosen by the Sustainability Commission. In spite of some early process issues, they've speedily come to useful and constructive conclusions about the actions we must take as a community to ensure that Sitka remains a great place to live. I would like to offer a specific report for immediate action to fund the community greenhouse emissions assessment as part of the community energy strategy. Sitka is astonishingly dependent on logistics chains that can easily be derailed by high fuel prices, but also, as we've just seen, by pandemic responses and non-responses. Food and energy security are very important issues to evaluate and address through the development of practical strategies. And I believe that the ETIP funding that is currently on offer would be a very important priority action to assist the community in arriving at an accurate analysis of our exposure to fuel price volatility and our options for reducing our current level of dependence. I am particularly concerned about the portion of our energy use that applies to transport energy. Electric passenger vehicles are a small but important part of this equation, and I support the idea that the city can reduce its own greenhouse gas emissions through making changes to its own vehicle pool. However, it's also important to begin the longer-term work of facilitating transitions for other very critical elements of life as we know it in Sitka. Retaining the services of barges, ferries, and the fishing fleet in a carbon-neutral world underpins the sustainability of this community in the long term. For this reason, I would like to support an emissions assessment that incorporates the fossil fuels used to transport essential goods and services, as well as those used for commercial fishing and subsistence activities. I also ask that the Assembly makes a serious effort to work with the community to address our collective challenges and to evaluate the opportunities that these challenges often bring. So thank you for your time and for your consideration of my perspective on these matters.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Richard Lean. I think that many of the goals presented by the Sustainability Commission are admirable and can, for the most part, be achieved. One of the things that will determine it is that the price will determine the future. and that includes both fossil fuels and everything that was mentioned in their goals. We cannot premise these goals based on growth. What is possibly sustainable in our economic environment is economic moderation built on solid foundations. Continuing down our current financial road here in Sitka is what is not sustainable and will lead us to a diminished quality of life and perhaps being just another seasonal tourist stop on Carnival Road. There are many points in the moderation plan, but the first step really needs to be to reduce demand. We heard in the at the beginning presentation about increasing demand. We need to reduce it, and one way to do it is to reduce the we need to place a cap on tourist growth, and that alone will reduce our carbon footprint, reduce load on our infrastructure, waste volume, etc. How many flushes do 550,000 visitors do? As far as the individual things, fossil fuel reduction, I'm afraid to say that's really not possible in the reasonable future. Fishing fleet, barge goods transport, flight services for goods and passengers, tourist cruise industry, construction level equipment. We do have a high level of saline environment here, and you know that any breach in a battery will result in a fire and toxic leaks. Toxic releases. Responsible use of natural resources, always. And the truth is, if we have less of demand, we will actually use less. A diminution of supply chain fragility, well, stop eating avocados. There is basically nothing that I ate or used today that was created in Sitka, and I don't think that's going to change, certainly in my short lifetime. Food security, I did some numbers, and if you look at how many acres you need in wheat to feed people, and you can go over it for any food, and it is beyond Sitka's capacity. So we really need to consider how we reduce a lot of the demand that we're having here. As far as sustainable transportation options, they have this interesting car called the Zook, which is kind of runs on its own, and you can probably have it go up and down the roads and drop you off like a cab. Solid wastes, we need it, and we missed the boat on that. And because 2032 is too far off.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else for persons here?
Assembly members, staff, and interested public. My name is Eric Jordan, resident of Sitka since 1976. I have read the sustainability goals and have the following comments. I support building a community renewable energy strategy. Be the plan adopted. Keep it simple and short, but to do that, you need to know where you are to set your course. And you figure out where you are by updating the 2008 greenhouse gas emissions inventory, focusing on all the emissions in the Sitka Sound Baranof Island area, including vessel emissions from the smallest sports subsistence skiff, and commercial and sport crafts to the largest barges and cruise ships, and from all aircraft landing and taking off in Sitka. We need to know where we are to know where we're going. One of the things we learn as fishermen is the first of the 7 steps of survival is recognition. We need to know where we are. We need to take inventory before we can decide the next steps. Thank you.
Hearing none, we will move it back to the assembly. So, anyone has any comments? George?
Yeah, I have to say that when I looked through these, I was really impressed. You know, the fear we sometimes have, and I heard it when we were first when we had the task force and now the commission, was that we're going to be talking about pie in the sky stuff that we can't do, and that is not the case here. And it's really impressive. These things are to varying degrees, you know, attainable, and you know, all of them. If we make the attempt, we may not get perfect, but we'll make a difference just even if we get halfway, which I think, and I know, having been to a couple meetings, that there was a much longer list that was talked about. And some of those things were extremely admirable, but not really doable. And so they focused on the things that we can actually do, which is nice. And it's kind of like eating an elephant, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? I'm not sure. So I appreciate that. And I know that actually I could sit and walk out with Katie on some of these things here too. I mean, I'm following closely the development of the electric outboards. Merck has one out now. But I think that this is good, and they obviously did follow the KISS principle, and so that's good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we can get done.
So the public, what's the KISS principle?
Keep it simple, stupid. Okay, so.
All right. Anyone else?
Hi. I was not on the Assembly when this commission was created, but I followed this with interest, and I'm impressed. I mean, I think this is a pretty neat plan. I'm glad to hear that you're ranking these, because when I look at this, and having been part of organizations where we tried to eat the herd of elephants instead of just an elephant, if we pull ourselves too thin, we're not going to get much accomplished. And I think your first goal is probably a really good start, and build some success, and then work our way down through the rest of them. We're not going to get through them in a year. I think is kind of the thing, but it's a great start, and I think that's a admirable beginning. So I like what I see, but you got the herd out there.
Crystal?
I actually have questions.
Yeah, feel free to call.
So as she makes her way up, I will just note that if these are the goals of the commission, I support them. I do have questions as it relates to the plan. First, that was a great document, a lot of information there. Needed some help with some layman examples. Goal number 2, waste diversion. The reason that I asked that is I looked at the 20 ideas that were listed in the original survey, and then you pared those down and obviously came up with 3 goals. And I wasn't sure if we tried to open the umbrella and conceptually put some of these under a larger goal of we want to look into this bigger issue. So what were some examples of waste diversion from goal 2?
Yeah, that is a great question, and just to note, as Assemblymember Christensen did point out, we had 9 goals to start with. We reduced some of those, and then we combined some of them. So for municipal solid waste diversion, I think what we are looking at is how can we work off of the plan that was created, or the last assessment that was done in 2014, see what our streams of waste input are, and then figure out what are the levers that we can use to adjust those, reduce those. I mean, specifically, one of the things that comes up a lot is food security, and as a member of the public commented on earlier, we have heard a lot about community gardens in Sitka. We've heard a lot about composting, as there was, there's some machinery here in town, and as well, just like a strong interest from community members in composting. So food waste is a huge waste stream that we want to look at diverting and reducing as possible. But there's a couple different ways to deal with that, right? Like there's composting and what we can do there to address that. And And then there's also, digesters. There's different machines that help take that food waste and turn it into energy and kind of like smaller applications like that. But I mean, those are just 2 examples, but we're really going to be, trying to take a look at the whole picture of where the waste in Sitka is coming from. Where can we just cut it off at the source, right? If you're getting, if your business is receiving catalogs that you don't want, how can we distribute some information to prevent that from happening? And then what are the sources that we can reduce the inputs for?
Awesome. And I knew it was larger than just that word. It was what makes up that. So I guess I have a question related to that. That goal in itself seems huge. And so these are annual goals. So this is your first time coming forward, and you were so comprehensive in presenting it. And I appreciate that. The reason that I have these questions is Health, Needs, and Human Services. I think this ordinance was sort of built off of that, which said bring forward annual goals of what you want to focus on. And goal 1, goal 2, and goal 3 all seem huge. And I really appreciated the commission intensity that you wrote into that, and you guys were very realistic. For all 3 goals, I saw that there was a high intensity required in not only of the commission, but also staff. And you broke it up by quarter, but it's high intensity in this entire first year. So you guys are volunteers, you're passionate, but I'm worried about 3 large-scale goals. Can you kind of speak to that? Because I know you guys had these conversations. We do a lot of informal meetings within Health, Needs, and Human Services, and I have a little bit of hesitancy there because now we're having a hard time recruiting for that because it's not just 1 meeting per month, it's actually extensive, the work that goes into that. So during your discussions, you guys are talking about, we want to focus on these goals, that's fair. How do you kind of address the exhaustion that comes from focusing so hard on 3 very large, important goals in a 1-year time period?
Yeah, absolutely. Fair question. We saw that herd of elephants and we just couldn't help ourselves. We had to go for the whole thing. No, I completely concur. These are big goals. The reason why they are sequential is because we wanted to recognize that we want to pursue these in the order, right? So our first priority is going to be that community renewable energy strategy, and that's what we're going to be working on first. And we've got a couple different ways. There's going to be the ETIP application. But then we're looking at, potentially a lull where the first part of that ETIP project, if we do get that support at the federal level, is scoping. So while we can start, thinking about that project and what it looks like, we don't want to fully define that scope because that is a community strategy. So if we're not going to fully define that scope, well, what do we do in the meantime before our next meeting? And that's potentially a chance to look at some of the solid waste things. If there's a lull in the solid waste project, then we can expect to move on to that municipal fleet plan. To be real, it's completely realistic, right? Like, I don't think that community renewable energy strategy is going to be finished within a year. For example, if we get the ETIP assistance, that's like an 18-month grant from what I understand, so that already extends us out beyond. But what I hope to be able to do is come back to y'all in a year and present on the progress that we've made on these goals. And then if there are any that have been buttoned up and we've got room for some more activity, we can brainstorm like what is going to take that place. But I do expect that these are going to take a little bit longer than a year, but I also think that we can make some really significant progress on each of them in a year, and definitely enough to report back on next steps and where we plan to take those. So, we chose these goals because we think that there's a lot of overlap with the city's municipal priorities, which the strategic plan also is expected over a 5-year timeline. So this isn't a 5-year work plan, it's a little bit shorter, but we think that the duration of these goals will be relevant over a significant period of time and hope to make some good progress on them in the next year.
So in the next year, we may have 3 goals that look exactly like this, and it's just a continuation of the project until you guys feel like you fully flesh them out and you can move away from that.
Yes, I hope they won't look exactly like this. There will be some movement, but like whether it's, this is a follow-up item or this is what resulted from the community renewable energy strategy that we know that we need to work on. If we know that there are electric vehicle infrastructure monies coming up that we need a plan for, like we hope to be in a good place to apply for those. But yeah, I do expect there will be continuations of each of these in the years to come.
Okay, and this is just because I'm very naive to it, but goal number 3, that definitely feels like a very longer term project. And the only reason that I'm familiar with this is it was in the last meeting, the budget meeting that we had on this previous Thursday, talking about the fleet age, and we have some young vehicles. And so I think by average, 22 years is how long we keep a vehicle. And so if you guys are able to put work into this, goal number 3 is fleshed out in year 1, how long until we actually implement it, and how much work will need to stay up to date on that goal before we're actually implementing it? Does that timeline coincide with replacing the fleet?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the fleet replacement schedule happens as vehicles reach, I believe, 100,000 miles, or like an expected timeline that's determined by Public Works about their appropriate age, and then they start selling them off. So it's not like let's transition the whole fleet at one time. It's how do we actually just start integrating the purchase of electric vehicles where appropriate, right? Like not the heavy duty trucks, like not all of those can be replaced, but we've got alternatives that are making their way to the market, and we've got a market that's actually going to stop making gas vehicles, many car manufacturers, by 2035. So in order to prepare for that, we hope to equip the assembly so that next budget cycle you can have a discussion about this. We've got Public Works that is apprised of the situation. They have their questions answered. They have some very valid questions. But this has happened in a lot of municipalities that have already dealt with these questions. So I actually don't think that one is as big as a lift as some of the others, because of the base of knowledge that exists here in Alaska, and because that's going to be happening. Like, I think we're hoping to formulate the policy so that is just integrated into the purchasing schedule and would be a part of your normal business, hopefully starting at the next budget cycle.
Okay. And then the last one, which you actually could close your presentation by addressing this, so I'm just going to assume, again, with the high intensity of all 3 goals, knowing that you guys are going to be busy, you had mentioned don't stop coming to us. That was my question, was how you can balance the needs of assembly when we send stuff your way. I think there would be a little bit of a hesitation just because these are so large-scale projects, and we don't want to exhaust you, and you guys have put in a lot of work already. So that is the only hesitation I have, but as experts, if this is what you say you can focus on and spend a year drafting out, I'm going to rely on you knowing your intensity best. But that's the biggest thing, is it just felt huge. It felt like we took, and when I was referencing goals, I was actually talking about the survey itself where you had the 20 items listed. Mm-hmm. It felt like a lot of those got enveloped into these broader goals, which can be excellent because you feel like you're getting more bang for your buck. 3 goals, but we're covering all of this area. But it's going to be a huge undertaking. So I appreciate the volunteerism, and focusing on this is something that, again, comes through as immense passion on the part of the commission members. But those are my thoughts, and thank you for addressing the questions.
Yeah, and thank you, and do appreciate the reality check and the timeline. Like, I think that's really important to be super upfront about that, and that these are longer term goals. I think significant progress can be made. I really do hope that the assembly does come to us when there are questions that they want answered, or advice on the sustainability realm, because I think that we would prioritize that, especially on whatever timeline was needed by the assembly. But the amount of planning that's going into the projects right now, like the planning stage, is really where these considerations need to be prioritized. And our hope is that the city is already doing a great job of considering a lot of these things. Like, how can we be a support to make this business as normal? Like, that is the plan. The assembly is dedicated to sustainability of city operations, as evidenced by the passing of the strategic plan. Staff is already thinking about this. We are a backstop to help advance those discussions and help implement that where possible. So, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I don't have a lot to say because I agree with all of this. And thank you for all your work. You guys have done a lot. This is impressive. I do tend to agree. I think this is, we have to come up with some goals, or you guys have to come up with some goals, and these are big ones. And it's okay, for me, it's okay if they overlap a little bit between the years, or we'll just see what it looks like next year. Does anyone else have a comment? Chris?
I like all the goals. I think number 1 is something really good to tackle here, trying to make ourselves more efficient for our electrical grid, and then, looking long-range future, what we need to do if our load continues to increase. I like anything where there's a potential to save money, and with our shipping getting more and more expensive, I like the idea of trying to find new ways of dealing with their solid waste and hope maybe not shipping out quite as much. So I think that is a really good thing for Sitka. And the municipal fleet thing, you know, I'm excited to have more eyes looking, more people looking in different areas than maybe city staff might be. Trying to find new ways to set up the infrastructure. Obviously, it's a very expensive endeavor, changing the fleet over to EVs and establishing all these charging stations. So I think a big goal should be trying to find funding other than the city's budget. So yeah, no, I'm excited for that. I'm excited to have other eyes on this and just trying to make ourselves more efficient. So I definitely approve of this.
Other comments? Hey, again, thank you, Katie. I know as chair you have a fundamental part of this, and I really appreciate the work, and Bree and Amy, and of course Elizabeth's here. I don't know if any other commission members are here. Carol, thank you very much. I was in the first couple of meetings. I couldn't make the most recent one, but I intend on continuing to attend. I think they're a great thing, great energy. So I'm glad you guys have kind of hit the ground running now. So I think that there's nothing else, do roll call.
Okay, on the motion to approve the Sustainability Commission goals for 2023 through 2024, Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Ms. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Yestad?
Yes.
And Mr. Mosier?
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0 on item C.
Okay. All right, so this is on to item D. So we're going to have Melissa Henshaw come and introduce this item. Again, for the public, this is a discussion direction decision item.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Assembly members. Melissa Henshaw, Public and Government Relations Director. This community transportation program is similar to the process that we saw in the last couple of assembly meetings, the transportation alternatives with the crossings. We have been waiting to hear what DOT had estimated the cost to be for the project. So the decision for this evening is to determine if we should move forward to partner with the state for the repaving and improvements to Kathleen Avenue. If so, then a match commitment should be determined. Note this project will not include utilities, so those should be replaced as well if this project is awarded. Last fall, we submitted a notice of intent to apply. The application was due February 28th, and since DOT didn't have the scope, schedule, and estimate completed, we submitted a draft application, and we'll follow up with completing the application if directed so by the Assembly. Included in the packet is the scope, schedule, and estimate provided by DOT. They gave it to us on March 10th. So they were required to complete this program, or complete this scope and schedule and estimate for the program. You'll note it looks to be about $2 million more than our estimate and about a 4-year process with construction in that 4th year. The total project cost is estimated at $10.6 million. The scope, schedule, and estimate stated that the project would use a design speed of 25 miles per hour, stating it was the posted speed limit for Kathleen Avenue. So I reached out to DOT and they stated that they designed to the higher speed of the roads, and there wouldn't be a difference in the design unless it was over 50 miles per hour. So regardless of 15 miles per hour or 25 miles per hour, they understand those differences on that road. So this grant includes the design. This scope we have proposed is a shared street design, including a multimodal design feature. So staff tonight is looking for direction from the Assembly to set the match, as the criteria for the grant includes higher points for contributing more than the minimum of the 9.03%, which is about $30,000 short of what is in the proposed fiscal year 24 budget for this program, or for this project. Haley compiled the table in the memo, so that pointed out the cost associated with the points that include 0 to 5 points and where those funds could come from. This includes the Visitor Enhancement Fund, expected to have about $250,000 at the end of this fiscal year, and/or from the CPV excise tax funds, though we think that that would need to be justified somehow. She included the option of defunding lower risk projects as well and moving this up on the priority list. So other than that, I'm available for questions, and we have Haley and Harmon in the audience as well.
I have a question, again, before you get up. So I know we have to commit monies for a match. When do we actually have to give it to them?
Well, the award should be coming sometime in May, but it probably will be more like June. And then once we get together for the grant agreement, then the funds will need to be starting to be expended, right? Those grant agreements have been taking anywhere from 6 to 24 months. This probably is a smaller project, but it would take 6 months after the grant is awarded at minimum to have to fund this project.
The reason I'm asking is fiscal years, and if we've already, if we're only 30,000 short, if we're doing it next fiscal year, it's an easier lift.
Right. And like I said, the award is supposed to be announced in May, maybe June, because this project, the whole opportunity has been a little bit delayed in all of their, estimated timeframes. And then it's going to take at least 6 months for a grant agreement.
Can you stay there? And Melissa, can you come up real quick? You can both, because I think you might all have some questions. So my question is, so say we can find the $30,000 somewhere, but we do this, we apply, so we're basically technically putting that money on hold until we find out if, we're not actually spending it, we're just putting on hold, and then if we get the grant, we have to expend it, etc. I like the idea, we definitely need campaign done. However, I'm just probably agree to do it, to apply for it, but I'm just a little worried that if we're just eking out the minimum, does that give us very much of a competitive edge? Or do you, Melissa Henshaw, do you know if do you have any wind, like an idea of where we are with that kind of thing?
I haven't heard what the sweet spot is necessarily for this. The TAP programs, they kind of mentioned to us that 12% was. So, if you look at the weighted, it's 12%. So it's the high weight. It's a category. It's a criteria that's weighted really highly. And so it could or could not make a difference depending on how well we need the other criteria. It's really hard to say.
Okay, the only reason why I'm asking is just for argument's sake, say, would allocating this money or setting it aside affect moving forward with other projects?
So I think it certainly could if we want to move forward with a balanced budget this year and wanted to do the appropriation with the FY24 budget. And we have a small surplus right now in that draft budget. So if we were to appropriate, if we wanted to go to that, the between 10.1 and 15%, that would be an additional 1.1 million that we would need to appropriate. We could do that by looking at some of the other projects that we've been setting money aside for. The other option would be, we are seeing higher sales tax returns this year than expected. It could be something that we analyze where we end the fiscal year and then make that decision at that point. But we still have a couple months left. There's no guarantee that we're going to have a good chunk of funding that would otherwise go into the public infrastructure sinking fund. And what we would do in that case, as part of the analysis, we'd be looking at, this year we had $5 million. From FY22, we had $5 million to put into the sinking fund. I don't expect that we'll have that much this year because that was savings from some of our COVID belt tightening. But so if we had $3 million and held back $1.1 million, then we'd be putting aside a smaller amount of funding for the next year. So it's kind of, we could defund something this year or essentially not fund something in the next year.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Well, it's kind of following up on that a little bit. looking at this matrix or whatever the graph, seems like we get a lot of bang for our buck getting up to the 1% and for a fairly small amount of money. And we start hitting diminishing returns very quickly. It seems like that, you know, to only get one more point, we have to spend another 400,000, and you get to 4, it's, you know, another 900,000 roughly, and so forth, and then up to 1.5 for the max. It's a huge amount more for, it seems like, diminishing returns. So I guess I'm asking if it was your money, personal money, and that's honestly how I figure this a lot, what would I aim for? And it just strikes me that going for the 2 points level is the sweet spot. I mean, do you agree with that, or is it?
It's not a bad plan, but again, that's up to the assembly to decide that.
So we can kind of commit on the bare minimum for now, right? And
Yeah,
then,
we need to come up with a resolution, so that amount needs to be in the resolution for the next assembly meeting. So this will come back to you at the next assembly meeting if you direct staff to move forward with it. And we're hoping for that match amount, so we can put that and button that up for the application.
okay, so I'm gonna throw you, Melissa, we have two Melissas in here, so Melissa, Haley, you're very familiar with all the capital projects, the list. This is a really important one to have done. Personally, I think it would, you know, cost more than $10 million, but it's okay now. But do you think that using our asset management thing, John's not here to go to talk about that, do you feel that this would be a worthwhile thing, and considering our other needs?
Well, even, you know, looking at this project, you know, when we sat down and looked at the spreadsheet, this project was at the top. You know, if we get no funding, we're going to be funding, you know, whether it's 8 million or 10 million, you know, we'll be setting aside money to get up there. So, you know, we'll be spending something significant regardless if we're able to get the state funding. You know, that would certainly be a lot less of our own working capital going into the funding. But, you know, this one it's still, I believe, a few years out, if I remember correctly, but it's a high enough priority that this year in our FY24 budget, we put $1 million into it, or close to.
So we say we commit to this, we don't have to keep it tied up indefinitely. We're going to know within, well, you said between 6 months and 24 months, right?
Well, we will know if we'll have this, if we are awarded this grant in May. But again, I said, they're running a little late on the program, but wouldn't be surprised if it was June.
But still, that's not too long to have something held up. And if we don't get it, then we just either put it to save for that project or for another project in the queue. Did you have anything to add to this thing? Okay, anyone else have any questions?
Go ahead, yeah.
So we talked about the list of projects. That wasn't in here, correct? You had mentioned that if we wanted to, we could possibly defund what else is on the list. That's not coming to mind. What are the projects that would be defunded? Because that was something that you just brought up.
Sure, and Michael Harmon can probably speak better to that. That was in our general fund budget presentation is where we discussed that. So, and we have them, you know, ranked by, it's a combination of timing of the project and priority. So.
Yeah. So do you have recommendations on that, or is that just something you're throwing out to the assembly? We could consider defunding other projects. Because otherwise that list would have been a good refresher, because I absolutely remember you including it and talking about risk, but I can't recall off the top of my head what's going to get defunded if we choose to prioritize and put more towards this project.
Sure, and I think depending on the level of funding, you know, what we might consider is, for example, if the assembly said, let's do the 5.1% or greater, and, for that one, we need an additional close to 570,000. If that's the direction that the assembly wanted to go, I would suggest that we then come back to the drawing board and propose how that would be funded. If we did that level of funding, I would suggest that we use visitor enhancement and CPV. I think defunding other projects is going to be our last resort, so.
Yeah, so you just want us to weigh in as far as an amount that we think is appropriate tonight, but again, that will come back to us and will be presented in a way that we could further make decisions on it.
Yes, just knowing that to keep a balanced budget and include this in FY24, it could mean either operational cuts, that's going to have less of an impact because of the public infrastructure sinking fund funding. So most likely it would have to come from other projects.
And to get the full 12%, which is how it's weighted, which is a lot, you would need the full 5 points, so the 15.1% or greater. Is that how that breaks down?
Yeah, that would give you the 5 points at 12%.
So the 5 points is equivalent to 12% in the total.
Yeah, there's a few different criteria that have the 12%, but it's up there.
Okay, thanks.
So to kind of get this discussion moving, I think I'm like leaning more toward tourists, just because once you hit the 5.1 or whatever, it starts increasing rapidly on how much we have to keep aside.
I totally would, it just looks to be the most cost effective to go for the 2.1% greater than minimum. And honestly, looking at the other criteria, I think we're going to score really high on this. It's obviously needs it, the safety, quality, the public support, and I just don't see how committing another roughly 400,000 gets us much more. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of support for going to the 1.1 million or 1.6.
So, Sarah, did you have something?
Yeah, well, I just have a question. So if, assuming let's just say we don't get this because we choose to go with a number 2, so how many times can you come back and try this again?
It
That's my
depends
first
on if
question.
they open this program back up again. This one in particular, I haven't heard if they will be doing it like the VIL, that's every year for the next 5 years. I think if I remember correctly, it's typically every 3 years, but it has been every 4 years as well. So not right away, but a few years down the line, possibly.
And at $1 million a year that it looks like we're putting into this, how long, if we're funding it, before we'll be able to build this thing? Would you be your estimate? Because the prices are not going to get cheaper.
They're not, and it really depends on what other priority projects we have. If we're able to put 3 or 4 million a year in, it'll go a lot faster. But again, it's going to depend on the scope of the projects as a whole.
And this is the top of the list?
Right now, for general fund.
Right. And anyone driving down that road might know that. So, I guess, I don't want to be parsimonious here, just, go for the easy buck. I want to maximize our chances of getting started with this process, because I think even if we do it, it's a 3-year process of planning it and organizing it and getting it done. So even after we find the money, which at the rate we're going will be 15 years, then, I think that's a problem. So I'm not, and the fact that we don't have to necessarily appropriate it and right this moment appeals to me, because I think the state's way behind on lots of things at the moment. So, I think I don't have the particular number I'm interested in here yet, but, sure, 135,000 is the cheapest way to go, but if this is our number 1 priority, and it's going to take us 10 years to 15 years to save it up, and it's going to come out of our pocket, then the state's willing to basically do 80% of it, then, I think we don't want to miss this opportunity. So let's pick a number that makes more sense. I'm not in favor of, I can tell you right now, number two just because it's cheaper. Because I think we're gonna be building this road. And I would hate to get to the point where we have to build the road because it's falling apart, prior to us saving enough to build the road.
Did you have something, Crystal? Okay. JJ?
So we can start talking numbers. So we can suggest any value. It's just a minimum of 135 gets us 2 points, right? Is that?
That's correct.
Anyone? Thank you. So 3 points is 570,000. 2 points is 135,000. 4 points, over $1 million. I'm not thinking over $1 million. I'm not comfortable with that. I'm somewhere between 2 and 3 points. What do we think of using, just as a discussion between us, as using CPV funds for this?
I mean, I like the idea, but Amy, did you have a comment on that?
Well, I was just going to say, you know, and I think Melissa Haley brought up some really good points about kind of seeing where we're at the end of the last quarter for sales tax returns. So we might have a couple of different options, and you know, part of the reason that this discussion is focused on the number amount as opposed to, you know, specific projects coming off the listener funds is because we might, you know, as we close out towards the end of the year, we might have some more options, and so you know, we'll be bringing those back forward to be able to choose from. And so these were just kind of noted, the ones that are here as your potential sources that are, at least we have kind of clear line of sight to in terms of dollar amount availability. But in terms of getting to that, you know, 500,000 mark, having a clear delineation between how much we use out of visitor enhancement versus CPV and justifying what that split is and why, right? What percentage of the road is used by cruise ship passengers and
I mean, I see the justification,
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So I'm under the impression that we need to decide tonight on what number we're doing so we can have a resolution next. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
That is correct. So we have to decide tonight how much we want to do.
I mean, I could live with the 569, or let's call it 570, yeah. It's only $3 short, or $13. I mean, it does, I like the fact that we don't have to come up with it immediately, and we'll have a much better idea than we do, and using the CPV. It's a fairly big jump between 1% and 5% there, and it's about 12% of the overall scoring. The one question I was just, what we're thinking is, I don't know if lobbying makes, I mean, not traditional lobbying, but it strikes me that if there's any way to get some of our other government entities in Sitka to chime in, that they would like to see Catalan fixed as well, I would think that the tribe would be enthusiastic about that as well. But I don't have super strong feelings if we went up to the 570, considering that we essentially don't have to come up with the money right away. I do get a little uncomfortable, and I'm not sure we're not chasing our tails a little bit going up to the other two. And of course, there's no point in being somewhere between. I mean, we want to be, 10 cents over the limit.
Yeah, I can do 570. I can do that. Melissa, can you come up and kind of speak to that about what George said?
So we have presented to the Sitka Tribe of Alaska a request for a letter of support, and that's going through the process. Right now it's going to their subcommittee, the Community and Transportation Subcommittee, and then it will go to the council. So we're expecting to see one.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't want that. Okay, so in the interest of time, we've got 3 people interested in the point number 3 at 569,987. Anyone else want to weigh in? Chris?
Yeah, I can support the 570 with where the funds are coming from. Yeah, it's definitely an important project. It's one of our ailing streets, so yeah, I think it's worth putting a little bit more forward to it.
Okay.
Trying to make sure we get the funds.
Okay. So that's four of us. Tim, did you have anything? Okay, Tim's okay with it. He just put his hands up, thumbs up. Crystal, are you okay with that?
So the weighted percentage points, if it, you could get 12% if you do 5 points. Is it correct that we break it up 2.4% for each level? Or is that not how the math? So are we going to get 7.2% out of 12% weight on this if we do level 3?
Melissa? Or one of you guys?
Because you get points, but the total percentage is 12%. And so we're trying to figure out how much we're giving up by going with different points, knowing that it's at 12%. So if we contribute and agree on 3 points that we want to put towards the project, what are we giving up percentage-wise? Because I would hate for this to be the reason that we don't get this grant, and then we see that we're within percentage of the other person who is funded or the other org that was funded, and then we have to come up with the money elsewhere. But it is a big jump in dollar figures, so I guess I'm not understanding the point system versus the percentage weight.
You don't, but just assuming from the table that was provided in the memo, I think your math is correct, Ms. Duncan, that if your maximum points in the category is 5, and that's worth a total of 12% of your overall scoring, then every individual point is worth 2.4%.
So it would be 9.6 if we did 4, 7.2% if we did 3, and then lower from there. So
if I understand the way that the criteria was provided here.
that's me too. So I'm trying to reason that that's how they would do it. I don't know that for a fact. And then do we know how competitive or how close the previous award decisions are? Do we have any of that information?
I know it's super competitive.
I do too. And that's what I read in the memo. And so I'm just thinking if we want to be competitive and not have to pay for this out of our own general fund pocket, we need to come as strong as we can, and it's just 2.4 percentage points, but that could be a lot. So that's why I appreciate the discussion. I don't quite know where I'm at. This is our highest level project, so all of this considered, it's not easy for me to come to a number based off of that. And I also love to support your guys' recommendations, but your recommendation was kind of like discuss and figure it out and then tell us, and we're like, oh. So.
I have a question. Do you think you'll have a better sense of where we're at? Like, if we give you either 3 or 4, for example, would you be able to tell us whether 4 is reachable? Like whether we can afford that, I guess is the best way I want to put that. And where that would come from in more detail than what I see here. Because when you talk about defunding things, I usually don't want to do that.
Sure. So 3, I can tell you right now, we can put together between, I think a balance between visitor enhancement and CPD funding would be very easy to justify, and the funding should be available. Further, we're not going to have our Q2 sales tax return numbers until mid-August. So that one is really going to tell us where we're going to end up for the fiscal year.
So there's no scenario where they would call us up and say you're 1 point away and we could have an emergency meeting and add more. Is there something like that?
I haven't heard anything of the such.
I assume the answer is no, but I gotta say, looking at the matrix, whatever they want to call it, not really knowing what intermodal work means, but the rest of it, the streets gotta almost max it out. So I realize using logic when talking about the state is maybe not the smartest thing, but what does intermodal mean in terms of this?
So that's a Michael Harmon question, but it's a mixed use bicycles and pedestrians.
I think we would normally say multimodal if they use the term intermodal.
Sorry.
Multiple.
We wouldn't bring this forward to you unless, we thought it had a shot.
So at this point, I think we've kind of asked all the questions we can ask. We've been discussing this a while. I don't know, Sarah, what do you think the best way is? Just vote or just kind of do a tally?
I don't think, like we did with the last couple of items, we asked for just what the general consensus was.
Okay. So how about we just go around the room, starting with JJ, and tell us your point that you want.
I'm comfortable with the 570. If we continue to talk about it more, I could go up, but I'm comfortable with the 3 points, 570.
Okay.
Let's go forward with 570, but I'm with JJ. I mean, I want to think about it a little bit more. When this actually comes up, I may change what I'm interested in.
Okay. Crystal?
I'm at 3-4. Just because we don't have a full picture of information, I don't think we're fully understanding. There's a lot to consider, and so this is an important discussion. I just didn't realize that we would be making a decision. It sounds like an important one, and so I'm not going lower. I'm okay with 3. I would prefer 4, but of course 4 comes with additional required information. Like, are we defunding something? That's not the goal. But it's kind of an absence of information because we just can't fill that in right now. So I'm teetering there.
Okay. So Crystal, 3 or 4. I'm okay with 3 for now. I could be convinced otherwise. I don't know how we're going to address this, but we got to figure out something tonight. So 3, 4.
I'm comfortable with 3. This may be a Sarah question, but since it's a resolution, if Melissa, it makes it easy to understand which one, comes forward and says, okay, here's where the 1.1 million would come from, and I'll, oh no, I am comfortable with that. We could make a motion, change it at the table, correct? Because it's just a resolution.
Yes.
So I would suggest we put 3 in the resolution, and Melissa, if you've got a nice layout where the money would come from, we might change it at the table next when it comes up.
That sounds good.
I don't care which place.
Chris?
Yeah, I can support that.
Okay. I think we're all on board. Amy and Melissa you feel like you got consensus? And I think that's a good one. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the discussion. That was good. Okay. So it looks like we're done, except for persons to be heard and reports. So, okay. We'll go to persons to be heard. This is for anything on or off the agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes. I believe Sarah informed me we have a call-in. Is that still true?
It is, typically we do in person first,
Okay.
and then we'll take it back on.
Okay. Anyone in the room want to speak in persons to be heard on anything on or off the agenda? Okay.
My name is Richard Ween. All I can say is wowzers. There's so much to speak about, but I'll direct my comments to this last resolution. Firstly, you have to understand that there's only $110 million in this grant. And to ask for the 10 million, you're asking for over 10% of it. It's highly competitive, and this is for the entire universe, the $110 million. Of interest is that if you note, for the compactor, the Southeast Economic Development Fund was rated no more money. So what we're looking here at is, and this should help you understand the situation, you're looking to all these places to take money. You're looking at the visitor enhancement, you're looking at the CPV, and all of these things mean it's a single item game. If you spend it one, you can't spend it on the other. And just have you noticed, since I like arithmetic, that $570,000 requires $9.5 million in tax. And, think about that and where all of these things are coming from. one of the basic questions that I had when I read this was that the sewer system, I have it written down, the sewer system was constructed in, in 1 year, and the all of these things that they were talking about, the sewage and drainage, etc., they're talking about how they're at their end of life. The question is, if they're at the end of life, what about other areas in Sitka that will also require these types of things? And I think the way the water mains have been breaking, etc., is that we are facing enormous issues. And I really think that we need to consider where this money is coming from. And it's just a head shake. And as I come to the end of my time, since we're talking about elephants, George Orwell wrote a great story, very short story, called Shooting an Elephant. Read it if you have the time. But I think that we're looking to rob Peter to pay Paul. We are fully overextending ourselves all the way down. And if you look at every issue within the budget, where are we going to find the money, etc., where are we going to find the 1.5 if we're having difficulty finding 570? And so I think you really need to put your thinking caps on and understand what money is and where it's going to come from, because the Fed ain't going to be so generous in the future. Thank you.
Anyone else present for persons to be heard?
My name is Leah Mason, and I would just like to correct an error in my first address to this body, in that I did not get a chance to thank the Sitka Electric Department for participating in the Electrification Expo. They were a great resource to the community, and from what I hear, they also appreciated the opportunity to talk to the community. So again, I think it was a great initiative. And I was happy they turned up. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Okay, Sarah, do you want to make the call?
Take your call, but if you leave a message, I'll get back to you just as quickly as I can. Thanks.
Okay, so the person didn't answer, so we will conclude.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, no, we have reports.
Play that one out.
Sorry. So make it quick here. The mayor's not here. I don't have any reports. Administrator?
No report, thank you.
Okay, attorney?
An offer was made and accepted for a legal assistant. Mindy Lawrence will be my new assistant. I'm excited about having her join me down the road. Thanks.
Awesome. Liaison representatives?
So, police and fire met. Once again, it was a very brief meeting because we heard from the chief of police and the deputy fire chief. Both had very good things to say about what's going on, so the police department has had a number of applicants. So I thought that was a good, several for the dispatcher and a couple of police officers. So they were going through that process, and there were 10 new EMTs in town. So.
All right. Anyone else?
I just wanted to emphasize Library Commission. They are super excited because, of course, this is a centennial celebration of the public library. This Saturday is a big celebration, so just want to invite the community to come out It's going to be Saturday, April 1st from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Stop by the library, but it's also going to kind of spill over here into Harrigan Centennial Hall. They're going to have a lot of fun. So as a community-oriented event, please come and enjoy yourself.
The Tree and Landscape Committee will be writing a letter of support for our community garden.
Okay. Okay, clerk?
All right, so we have our final budget meeting on Thursday, April 6th. It will be on other governmental funds, and then there will be a catch-all item, the second item. And then looking ahead, our next assembly meeting would be Tuesday, April 11th. We have a number of vacancies on our boards and commissions. We have the Animal Hearing Board, 3 vacancies on Health Needs and Human Services, the Investment Committee, 2 openings on the Library Commission, several on the Local Emergency Planning Committee, Parks and Rec, and Tree and Landscape. And then we're also advertising for seats on the newly formed Tourism Task Force. Applications for the sustainability representative, they are due Thursday at noon. Applications for the Port and Harbors seat, those are due on Wednesday, April 5th at noon. And then applications for downtown business corridor seat, the tourism and attractions seat, business and general seat, and then there's 2 community at large seats. Those are due at noon on April 19th. So if you're interested, I have some applications in the back of the room, or folks can stop by or contact our office.
Thank you. Do we have any other reports? Hearing none?
I'm not gonna do it this time.
Anyone else want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Ready for it? They don't want to. We have a motion to adjourn.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
He's on both. He's a friend in the library and he's a
I'll see you later.
So we're going home.
Yes, we are.
It was just everyone.